Hello guys and welcome to the video. So today I'm bringing you guys a free-to-play team for the Giants Abyss floors. Now if you're not subscribed to the channel or you don't watch any of my content, I highly suggest you check out the Beginner's Adventure series. So far we're 16 episodes in and the videos aren't that long, but essentially those videos give you all the context you'll ever need to the account we're on and even the team, how we got to completing this team. So again, I recommend checking out those videos so you have some context as to how we got here. But if you're just here for the team, then I'm here to help you with that. So straight off the bat, there's a team, Abyss Hard. 1 minute 57 seconds has been the fastest this team has ever been, apparently. Which, in all honesty, I mean, this is a free-to-play safe team. So you're only going to be so fast until you start getting other damage dealers in there. But I think that's not that bad of a time at all. Though the way you would ruin these units might be a little bit different from what you guys expect. So I recommend sticking throughout the entire video. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into each monster. We're going to explain why they're so important to the team. And how you would ruin them. And from there we'll even see a couple runs. So with that being said, let's get into the units. So the first unit that's going to be on this team is Veramos, the Dark Ifrit. You could obtain this guy through the fusion hexagram, and when you first start out, the game does assist you in completing your first fusion, so I recommend aiming directly for this guy. The reason he's so important to this team is for quite a few reasons. He has a lot of utility to his kit. First things first is his leader skill. He increases the HP of ally monsters by 33%. This is very important. If you're a new player, or even if you're an older player who's just having a little bit of a difficult time clearing the Abyss, one of the things you're going to notice is that the Abyss boss hits really, really hard. And even in the waves, you can take quite a bit of damage too. So adding any amount of survivability, even if it's by a 33% HP lead, is super duper important. Another thing that's important about Veramos is his second skill, which he attacks all enemies to inflict damage that's proportionate to the enemy's max HP. Just that alone is also a really good thing about Veramos, because when you get to the Abyss floors, everybody there has a super massive HP pool, which you can bring units like Crow or Naomi, but units that deal damage based off of enemies' max HP tend to do the most amount of damage, which is why even units like Lynn, the light Amazon, whatever, is recommended here. Or even units like Sigmaris, if you so happen to decide to fuse him. Enemies max HP is very OP here. But that's not all. His skill also states that he will have a chance to stun the enemy with a 40% chance, which this is good for helping with the waves leading up to the boss. This will help with surviving, because if you're stunning the wave, they're not getting a chance to attack you. If the target is not stunned after attacking, though, he does decrease their attack bar by 50% with a 100% chance every 3 turns when fully skilled up. And this is really important when you consider one thing: the Giant's boss, or most bosses in the game, period, cannot be stunned. So every time he uses this, even in the boss's, in the boss room or in the boss fight, every single time he will have that chance to reduce the attack bar, which will prevent the boss from moving. So this is a really, really important skill. On top of that, he does have his passive, which is pretty OP here. It's actually pretty necessary for this team to function. His passive states that he can remove a harmful effect, or removes a harmful effect, even though I think he does more than one. It seems like the way it's wording it, it's only one, but it's more than one. Except an ability effects. And ability effects are things like stuns and freezes on all allies each turn, and the allies will recover their HP by 5% for each harmful effect removed. This is really good because when you get to the boss's floor, there is the tower in the Giant's Abyss floor that will place a defense break on your team. And the boss already hits super hard. So applying a defense break to your own, the tower applying a defense break to your units is already going to make it 100 times worse. If the boss attacks your units while there's a defense breaks, your nukers will die, leaving only your tanks. which it's going to make the the run times super long. So you want to make sure you have a reliable cleanse, and Veramos is that reliable cleanse, because this is every time he takes a turn. Every time he takes a turn, he's cleansing the defense break. In addition, your attack bar increases by 15% for each harmful effect remaining on the ally after attacking each turn. That is also good, considering that leading up to the boss, the waves do have a chance to freeze you, and since he can't cleanse the freeze off of you because that's an ability effect, he will just push your attack bar by a little bit, allowing you to get that freeze off of you quicker. So Veramos has so much to his kit that's super helpful, right? Ultimately, he's helping your team survive. It is very important that Veramos lives throughout these fights. If your Veramos dies, you lose the fight. Now, we didn't really talk about his skill 1, but his skill 1 really doesn't help with the Abyss Floor, since you cannot apply dots to the Giants boss. And damage according to attack speed, I mean, you're not, in the beginning of the game, you're probably not going to have the runes to utilize the attack speed damage that much anyways. But moving on to his stats, the stats that I have focused on is speed, HP, and accuracy. I think 51% accuracy is completely fine. 95 speed, just so he's moving fast enough to where he's consistently cleansing and using his crowd control. In tons of HP. As I mentioned literally a second ago, if Veramos dies, you lose, because then the defense breaks happen and then your units get nuked, because your units will get hit every time the boss moves or every time the boss attacks. All of your units will get hit. So it's important that Veramos lives or lives, so he's not only reducing the attack bar, but he's also healing and cleansing. So I'll let you guys take a look at the runes I have on him. He's on Energy Despair, Energy for the extra HP, and Despair for that extra chance to stun. These are what his artifacts look like, and we'll move on to the next unit. So the next unit on this team is Bella Dion, the Light Inugami. You can obtain her through Light Dark Scrolls or through Secret Dungeons. If you want to know what channel you can, find Secret Dungeons, you go to here, you go to 1050, and you'll wait patiently. When someone does have a secret dungeon you want, you'll click on it and you can click Request to Enter. And if they have space, they will accept your request to enter. I beg you, do not go to that channel and spam. Otherwise, I'm sorry, I get a little rude. I don't think that you should get a secret dungeon if you're going to sit there and spam, like some people do. So, my opinion. But the reason Bella Dion is so important to the team is, one, she has a defense break, which is really good. And on top of that, and this is on her first skill, and on top of that, she also decreases the attack bar with a specific chance. So being able to defense break and prevent the boss from moving with attack bar decreases is really, really good. In his second skill, I remember someone telling me Bella Dion is a he. In his second skill, he attacks the enemy and removes all beneficial effects on the target. This is really important because the boss does get an attack buff from his left tower, helping him deal more damage. But since Bella Dion is on the team, if he could strip this attack buff, essentially the boss deals less damage, which helps with surviving. On top of that, he will recover his own attack bar by 30% if the enemy doesn't have an attack buff or a debuff or a buff at all. So this is a really good deal right here. And if you do skill this up all the way, the attack bar recovery does go from 30% to 40%. So I would suggest skilling it up. And the last skill fills the attack bar of all allies by 30% and recovers their HP by 35%. And when fully skilled up, the recovery goes to 40% and the attack bar recovery goes to 45%. Which this is really good. It gives you guys a consistent heal and it helps push your turns more. And when I added Bella Dion to this team, I noticed that this almost fixed this fixed pretty much a lot of my runs, because we were healing more often and we weren't just barely straddling by, if you know what I mean. On top of that, being able to push turns out more was super helpful for the cleansing and just general damage dealing. I noticed that my runs were getting much faster. So Bella Dion is a really, really good unit. If you can find a different unit, that's fine, but I love Bella Dion for the heals, for the strips, and for the single target hits, which is very important because you do not want that boss to counterattack you. So the stats for Bella Dion is going to be pretty much the same as Veramos. You want a good amount of speed, good amount of HP. You notice that I have a lot of defense on Bella Dion. That's because Bella Dion could be used in more places than just the Giant's Abyss Floor. You could take Bella Dion into places like the Rift Beast, which is something that you're going to inevitably want to complete. She also does have 52% accuracy, which is really good. So I'll let you take a look at her runes. So she is on Swift Fight, but I got these fight runes off of logging in. But if you cannot obtain fight runes, energy runes work completely fine. In fact, energy runes might be better in a way for survivability. It's just I put fight runes because it increases allies' attack by 8%, but it doesn't really make too big of a difference. She's on speed, HP, defense. Here are her runes. And here are her artifacts. So, let's move on to the next unit. Moving on to one of the most important units on this team, it's Shannon, the Wind Pixie. You can obtain her through unknown scrolls. You could even find her in the magic shop if you need to. So she's really easy to obtain. She's really easy to skill up. And she's one of the most important parts of this team. So let's take a look at her skills. All of her skills are really important here. First skill is she attacks the enemy with an energy ball. This attack has a 75% chance to increase the enemy's chance of landing a glancing hit for 2 turns and absorbs the attack bar by 15%. So glancing is a really big deal. Glancing helps prevent, it helps prevent the boss or just general enemies from dealing critical hits, which again prevents the boss from dealing tons of damage to you. Not only that, the attack bar absorption is going to be really amazing here. So far, 3 out of the 3 units we've shown has had some type of attack bar manipulation, which is really good. Again, it's preventing the boss from taking turns. And even when the boss does take a turn, when he does attack, he has that glancing hit on him, so he's dealing very little damage. And her second skill, she attacks all enemies and decreases their attack speed for 2 turns. Also, absorbs their attack bar by 10% with an 80% chance. This is really good because it helps with the waves leading up to the boss and even in the boss's room. So, moving past the attack bar absorption, which is, again, already really good, placing an attack speed slow is going to be really helpful for the boss's room and for the waves because it prevents the enemy from moving as often as they should, obviously, right? And when you consider this in the boss room where that tower's placing defense breaks like crazy, making it move slower so it's placing them less often, or less often, and even preventing the boss from moving as often, it helps you finish your fights or your battles earlier. And since this is an attack, you can build her on Despair, and this will technically be like almost like AoE crowd control, right? You could almost Despair stun everybody if you wanted to. On her third skill, she does increase the attack power and defense of all allies for 3 turns, every 4 turns. This is, again, a really good skill because she's helping with damage by putting an attack buff on all your units, especially your nukers, and she's putting a defense buff, allowing you guys to survive more often. So, in general, she's a really good unit. Taking a look at her stats, she has 79 bonus speed, she has a decent amount of defense, pretty decent attack or HP, and 66% accuracy. You want her to be tanky so she's able to take hits, and you want her to be accurate so she's actually landing her debuffs. Because there are about like 1,500 units that can place attack and defense, but to also have glancing and to have slows along with some attack bar manipulation in both of those skills, it's just you want her to land those. So here are her runes right here. She's on Despair Energy, the energy for survivability, and here are her other runes. The Despair runes are for that chance to stun every time she attacks, and her artifacts are defense artifacts. I have her on defense artifacts, so she helps me with some of the Rift Beasts. So a lot of these units are helpful not only in the Abyss floor, but in other places in the game too. Moving on to the next unit, Naomi. Naomi's first skill attacks with the spinning punch and stuns the enemy for 1 turn with a 50% chance. This is kind of helpful for the wave, but it doesn't really help too much with the boss floor since the boss can't be stunned. Her second skill launches 2 consecutive attacks on an enemy, leaving a branding effect for 2 turns with a 50% chance and decreasing the enemy's attack bar by 25% with each attack. So this skill is actually really helpful. Branding allows your damage dealers, or just your entire team in general, to deal more damage to whomever has this debuff. Alongside the attack bar manipulation, which again so far 4 out of 4 units have had, this helps prevent the boss from moving. I have been skilling her up because any bit of damage that you can squeeze out of these units, you should be trying to, just so your runs are a little bit faster. But you do not have to skill her up. It's not necessary. But what makes Naomi so important is her passive, where the critical rate of this unit will be at 100% if the enemy has harmful effects. So if the enemy even has 1 harmful effect, she has 100% crit rate anytime she attacks. So you can build her without focusing on crit rate, which you will see when we take a look at her stats. The damage that she deals will be increased by 20% for each harmful effect granted on the enemy. So no matter when she attacks, whether it's her first skill or her second skill, she will deal increased damage to the enemy. So this is really helpful. Now, this is what her stats look like. You're going to notice that she actually has quite a bit of HP and next to no crit rate. Again, the crit rate is because of the passive. You do not need to build her crit rate at all. But she doesn't have a whole lot of attack. Because again, in the Abyss floor, the Giants hit hard. Even with the team as it is, if you were to build your damage dealer super squishy, there is a good chance that they will die, making your long super run. I've noticed personally that after switching them from attack crit damage attack to attack crit damage HP, that my runs were roughly around the same speed, but I was winning more consistently. I was going from having one run that would be a minute long to the next run being 3 minutes long to each run being around a minute or 2 minutes or however long it is, because Naomi was surviving more. Your runs will become 1,000 times longer if your damage dealers are dying. I think that's pretty obvious. So if you can make sure that they survive, that's going to be better for you. And it's not like she needs tons of attack anyways at the moment, because again, she does deal increased damage based off of harmful effects, so you're still going to dish out a good amount of damage. But let's take a look at her runes. So she's on Energy Fatal, energy for some survivability, plus again, she doesn't need Blade. I guess if you wanted to, you could switch her to like Rage Energy or whatever. But here you go. You'll notice that a lot of her substats are focused all on attack or crit damage or HP. So the Fatal, she's attack, crit damage, HP. So there are her runes. And there are her artifacts. So again, I would suggest ruining your nukers as attack, crit damage, HP, so they survive. You want them to, to be able to take hits. So the final unit of this team is Crow, the Dark Inugami. You can obtain this guy through LD scrolls or secret dungeons, or if you don't want to have to put in any work at all, you can go into the Summoner's Way, and through the challenges, you can go to the Dimensional Hole challenges, and as long as you even enter the Dimensional Hole, even just like taking a peek inside of it, you will obtain Crow for free. So you don't have to really put in any work to get him. So going over his skills, his skill 1 attacks the enemy with razor sharp claws, and decreases the enemy's defense for 2 turns with an 80% chance, and inflicts continuous damage for 3 turns with an 80% chance. The defense break is really good. You do have a second defense break from Crow, because you have Bella, Dion, and Crow who do defense breaks. The continuous damage doesn't really mean anything here because you cannot place dots or continuous damage on the Abyss boss. The skill 2 teams up with another ally to attack an enemy. The damage increases by 20% for each harmful effect on the enemy, and this effect also applies to the ally who attacks with him. So this is really good because you're getting tons of damage out. Sometimes he will attack with Naomi, which is really, really OP, or he'll attack with one of the other tanks, which will deal a okay amount of damage. But this is a really good skill. I've skilled him up for a couple reasons, but any bit of damage you could squeeze out of him, I would suggest you do. And last but not least, the skill 3 attacks on the enemy's wounds to leave a branding effect for 2 turns. Again, the branding is really good because it'll allow your team to deal increased damage. The damage increases by 50% for each harmful effect on the enemy. And when you fully skill him up, the branding goes from for lasting 2 turns to now lasting 3 turns. Which, if you can keep that branding on that enemy for as long as possible, I recommend doing it. So, here are what his stats look like. Again, you'll notice he's exactly like Naomi. He's like a hybrid. He has a bit of attack on him, but he also has HP on him. He has 89% crit rate and 158% crit damage. Here are his runes. He's on Fatal Blade. Attack, crit damage, HP. My bad. I almost said attack, crit damage, attack. He's attack, crit damage, HP. And again, you don't have to really worry about the damage being terrible because his skill 3 and his skill 2 allow him to deal tons of damage. So, those are how all those units are runed. It's very important that you rune them like this. If you build your damage dealers super squishy, you'll find that you're going to lose a lot more of your fights. So we're going to go into the Abyss hard floor. We've went over all of the units. Let's not waste too much time. Let's go and see how the runs look. So we'll click play. So you'll notice they're still doing a good amount of damage. And this is also one of those things that, as I was mentioning earlier with Vermoss, we got frozen, so that was the inability effect. And you saw Crow still took a lot of damage from the wave, even though he's very tanky. So again, imagine if you built him on a squishy build. Crow would potentially die in the waves, and sometimes he'd not even make it to the boss fight. So you do want to build him super tanky. But it's also good that we have Bella Dion here, because with Bella Dion, we do have some healing. So when Crow gets too low or someone else gets too low on HP, because you see, they love to mess with Crow, Bella Dion is here to heal him up. So I like it. And you can see they're still, again, dealing a good amount of damage. Look at that. See, everyone got stunned. So that second skill, along with the Despair set, really, really OP. I mean, being able to prevent the waves from dealing damage to you guys and just knocking out as much of the wave as possible. And then you saw even Shannon stunned this crystal on the right. Jesus Christ. I was about to say that Golem was tanking. But you saw 52k just now, by the way. So here we are in the Abyss hard boss floor, whatever. Vermoss just did 31k. Crow just did 56k on his skill 3. They're all dealing a good amount of damage. But as you can see here, with that defense buff from Shannon, we didn't take that much damage at all. And then boom, Vermoss had that cleanse. So you're going to see that cleanse come into clutch quite a few times, actually. So this could happen, see? Now let's pause right quick. So you see this happens, and then Naomi would have died. Crow is pretty much dead. Sometimes Crow dies, but that's okay. You see the boss is already almost dead. Everyone took a big hit. If your damage dealers were built attack, crit damage, attack, they would have died. Naomi and Crow would have died, making this run 1,000 times longer. We would have been sitting here for 6 minutes. But thankfully that didn't happen, and then it's fine. Again, sometimes Crow dies, sometimes he doesn't. The worst case scenario I've ever seen is, I guess, like they were having trouble in the waves, and they got to this boss fight, and then Crow and Naomi died. But it doesn't look like that's going to be the case here. They both live, and it's going to be around a 2-minute 50. Yeah, 2-minute 59. I imagine it's because we sat there for a second, but it's really consistent. I mean, I've been doing this run all day, and I mean, I even have some Raymond probably sitting right. Oh, only 2, but it's a really consistent run, and I hope this helps you, right? If you're trying to beat the Abyss hard floor, this is a completely free team that you can use to beat it. So with that being said, I'm going to leave it here. I hope you guys have fun with this team, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.